Hello and welcome to the latest edition of Lunch. You'll be joined today by Lisa Pennell, who is the CEO of the Barry Plant Group. Lisa, thank you so much for joining me. I'm incredibly
grateful. Thank you, Stephen. It's great to be here.
So tell us a bit about yourself. How did you get into agency? You've worked for some fantastic companies, I see, in Australia, Ray White, Harcourts, and now obviously at Barry Plant. So tell us how you started.
So it was a bit of a surprise landing for me. I didn't intend to be in real estate. I come from a corporate background, started in accounting, Price Waterhouse back in the day before the merger, and had done a variety of different corporate roles, in a variety of industries. And then I joined forces with someone I'd gone to university with to start the first utility connection business in Australia. And that exposed me to the real estate industry and in particular Ray White. Wasn't too long before I was working with the White family, and there I stayed for the next 20 years in a whole variety of different roles, really interesting sort of different projects, different roles, but always working quite closely with the White family, and in particular Brian White, who probably is one of the true titans of our industry here in Australia and really took franchising to a whole new level in this country. So after that, I went to Harcourts as COO for a couple of years amidst a restructure in the second largest group in Australia, and now at Barry Plant in Victoria as the CEO.
Okay, so let's unpick some of that. So going from a corporate world into real estate, what skills did you bring and what did you learn?
I guess I had all that professional development that you get in a more corporate environment, and real estate is still very much the Wild West in Australia. So, a lot of people who are in our industry in Australia are not necessarily university educated. It's a vocation that they started. A lot of them didn't finish high school. And so I brought a lot of sort of learnings that I'd had in more structured corporate environments. What I probably didn't understand, I definitely didn't understand, you can imagine sitting around at a barbecue going, wouldn't it be great if someone did your utility connections when you moved? Oh, I know. We'll just make it part of the real estate customer journey. That'll be so easy. And then, of course, you start talking to agents and everyone agrees in principle, but trying to get an agent to actually do something other than the job that's related directly to the property transaction, it's an eternal challenge, and you might get endorsement from a franchisor, for example, but that doesn't, and all of our partners will know this, you then need to go one by one building relationships. I guess what it showed me very early on is that it is such a relationship business in Australia, real estate, and the key reason why it hasn't been disrupted is exactly that. Relationships are hard to disrupt, and that is the nature of the real estate industry here. Makes it exciting and very unpredictable. I can see my shirt keeps disappearing with this filter. My apologies. I am a real human. But yeah, so it's hard, it's difficult, it's the Wild West, and that's what I love about it. It's completely unpredictable, the real estate industry, and that's awesome.
Totally agree. So I'm going to come back and ask you loads of questions on what you said. You mentioned working with the titan of the industry, Brian White. What were the qualities that made him a titan?
His absolute passion and purpose for real estate and growing the business of Ray White. Brian back in his day and those who had the pleasure of working with him when he was really in full swing, it was absolutely terrifying. He just had an ability to really control the room in a way that I've rarely seen in other leaders. And he just had such passion for the business. Everything was about growing Ray White, and he dedicated all of his attention and energy to that with a genuine love. And it was fascinating to work with him through those years. And yeah, certainly, as I say, exposed me to things I wouldn't have dreamt to expose myself to on that journey. So forever grateful for that time.
Okay, so you talked about being a great leader, controlling the room. How did he do that?
He with silence mostly. A lot of people don't realize the power of silence, and the power of listening. He always carried a little notebook with him and was forever asking questions and taking notes and taking those ideas back to the group. And as I say, it was a very different style of leadership to the style of leadership that works today. That sort of people want a different environment. The world has changed dramatically, but was certainly a fascinating place to be for a very long time.
Okay, so you talked about passion and purpose. So where do people get this passion and purpose from?
Yeah, interesting question. Everyone's passion and purpose is different, I think, but I think more people than ever before, particularly post-COVID, are looking for purpose in their work. We're not really just there for the money anymore. We want more out of life. And so for me, the passion and purpose for me has always been in helping people and making the right thing happen. And again, probably part of what I enjoyed at Ray White was my autonomy in solving the various crises that came up regularly. I really enjoyed making the right thing happen. And as I say, everyone has different purpose. Our purpose here at Barry Plant is all about building trust and showing that we can be a trusted industry. That's our passion and our purpose here.
Okay, now that's very interesting, trust, because in Australia you're all licensed. In the UK you can be a butcher one day and an estate agent the next day. There's no licensing here. Yet estate agents here are entrusted to sell sellers' biggest tax-free asset. Yet if you mention the word estate agent, I won't tell you what will come out of people's mouths. How can the industry better, maybe in the UK, and take lessons from Australia, become that trusted advisor? So what sort of things are you doing to be that trusted advisor? And also, I love what you said, making the right things happen, because ultimately we are problem solvers, and that's what we're meant to do.
I think there's a huge education piece that needs to happen. I think I've always had the feeling that the vendor is as much a part of the problem in Australia for the mistrust that's around. It's possibly the same in the UK, I'm not sure. But the vendor is predisposed to believe whoever tells them the biggest price, which encourages less, trustworthy agents to behave in a less trustworthy way. And, unfortunately, that's part of the problem is, educating the vendor that agents are not valuers, they're marketers. And the best agents will get you the best price, but no one knows what that is, at the point of appraisal. So, I guess that's part of the process of building trust. But I think brand trust is a different thing entirely. I think that's about behaving in a way that's a respectful and responsible corporate citizen, and ensuring proper curation of those who are allowed to trade under the brand. That we can't be an industry that just has top performers regardless of their ethics. We've got to make sure that the people in our group and people in our industry are acting appropriately throughout.
So you talk about educating the consumer, and I totally agree. I put a reel on Instagram, and it was all about trying to demonstrating your negotiating skills to get the best price for the seller. And I think I had over 140,000 views on that reel, which is amazing for me. But I've never been trolled before until then, and I was trolled terribly. And it's definitely given me the impression that the consumer doesn't understand what agents actually do and who they act for. So how can agents better educate the consumer as to what we actually do? Because I don't think I think here, and I know it's slightly different over there, but here a consumer thinks all we do is put a property on the portal and that's it. And there's plenty more things that we obviously do, but how do we get that message out there?
I think there's a lot of people doing a lot of really good things in that space. And I think, there's more and more of a movement towards exactly what you and I are talking about here, making sure that we're educating consumers appropriately and that we're conducting ourselves appropriately. I don't know that there's any single answer to your question. I think, again, the interesting thing about online is that online gives everybody access to a whole lot more information, but online also gives those cowboys the opportunity to create negative or positive profiles that aren't necessarily true profiles. I think what this will do is that, this explosion of information and empowerment that we see consumers have because of the misinformation that we're now starting to see as being rife on the internet, we're going to see more and more movement back to that, the tribal days, if you like, of, Steve, do you know I'm selling my house, do you know a good agent around Q? I would put that on my Facebook page. So rather than Googling for real estate agents queue and finding the one who's got the best reviews, we might actually go and ask someone that we trust. And again, trust brings trust. So wherever we've gone wrong in the last 20 years or so, where real estate agents can market themselves as whatever they want, regardless of the truth, we're actually going to have to pay the piper now. If you haven't done the right thing, it will come back to bite you. We're seeing the positive side of that already in community groups where agents are being referred by lots and lots of customers they've had good experiences with. And we're going to see that more broadly. That's my prediction in any case.
I think social proof is massive, and I'm seeing now, 100%. I'm thinking of selling my property in a Facebook group, and then you see 50 people all saying the same estate agent there. You can't get better social proof than that.
That's exactly what I mean. Yeah. So the modern version of asking for a referral.
Yeah. 100%. So coming back at the start, you talked about, this is a relationship business. In the UK, and I've been going on this time and time again, and I think agents are most probably bored of it. We're far too transactional. We do the transaction and that's it, and we forget that there's a client there for life. And one of the things I took away from Eric, which was a bit of a light bulb moment for me, which may seem a little bit silly when I've been doing it for 30 odd years, but a lot of the agents there started talking about, well, how can a buyer is a future seller, which I know about, but actually they've got client for life programs for buyers, which I thought was very interesting, and turned it around, because I always thought it was about that seller is a client for life. I give them a great experience, they're going to recommend me to friends, family, colleagues and neighbours. But actually it starts a lot sooner than that with the buyers. So, what are you doing? What programs do you have to have those buyers, sellers becoming clients for life?
It's again a great question. I've only been in this role at Barry Plant for the last 18 months, and so a lot of these questions are still unanswered for us broadly. We've gone through a massive transformation over the last 18 months of our value offering, our branding, and our technology, and so homogenizing anything I think is difficult, because I think that with every different demographic you're going to find different customer needs. If you remember that Rowan Atkinson movie where the man Mr. Bean's trying to buy some jewelry for his wife, and he's trying to do it on the sly, so he wants a quick transaction, and the woman's busily trying to wrap it up, and what color bow, and would you like this and would you like that. That's not the service that he wanted. So there's no horses for courses in terms of how do you secure a customer for life. You said to me at the beginning, half an hour might seem way too long to me for an interview. So you must have had that experience before. For other people, it wouldn't be nearly enough time. So really, in our relationship, Stephen, your needs are going to be unique to you. So my job is to find out what it is that you want and then tailor.
Okay, so you talked about listening before. So, and that skill, how do you find out what my needs are, or a seller's needs are, or a buyer's needs are?
Again, there's all sorts of technology that you can use for preferences, but the really successful agents are the ones who really connect on a very human level. And this is where I think prop tech's gone awry in our industry. There's a lot of prop tech that is replacing elements of the customer journey, or seeking to, or generating leads through AI, which again, there's a place for all of this technology. But when it starts replacing the human interaction, that's a problem. Even this type of interaction, we're kind of connecting, but if I was sitting with you, that would be a completely different level of connecting. There's no piece of technology that doesn't get between agents and their customers in some way. Being belly to belly in the lounge room and taking the time to really look in someone's eyes, that's something that no AI will ever reproduce. So from my perspective, technology is important. Sure, marketing is important. But what's more important to me is making sure that our tribe, our growing tribe, is the right sort of people that believe in the same things that I believe in as the leader of this business and our board believes in. And again, that comes back to passion and purpose and doing the right thing. The profit comes as a side effect of that.
100%.
Seems to be working. We're growing in market share quite rapidly. So, so far the theory's looking good.
So would you be happy to share two things then that have worked really well in the past 18 months that you've changed? And one of the other questions I'd like to ask you about change is, how do you get the buy-in from your team to change? Because adapting to change is difficult for a lot.
So, I mean, specific to the Barry Plant business, the biggest and most important change that we made was to our brand. The brand was stale and was not reflective of who the business was, what the business is. And I think today people don't want slick marketing. They don't want misleading marketing. They want to feel like the brand that they see is what they're going to get, the experience that they're going to get. So for us, you know, our new brand, which is very fresh, very neutral. It's not masculine or feminine. It's very alive. It's happy. It's you know, that it's very real and very relatable. But it's very different to other real estate brands in terms of the way they present. You know, particularly in Melbourne, where everyone, you know, this homogenized dark blue, you know, rock star brand, if you like. I don't know what the MO is, but you know, as I say, being relatable, that's what the Barry Plant Network is. It's very diverse, it's very fair, you know, it's not misogynistic, it's not a racist group, it's not, you know, it's a very much everyman relating real. So that the branding change was really important. Getting people on board was really interesting because it was a radical shift. And, you know, with any adoption curve, you're going to have the you know, the difficult bit at the end. In this group, whilst there was a difficult sort of bit at the end with people who are quite resistant to change, the group does operate very much like a tribe. So at the end of the day, they were willing to concede preference in order for the group to move forward, and everyone could see what the vision was, you know, where we're taking this business. So that was less challenging than I expected, given that the other groups that I'd been in, where you don't have that connectivity and that willingness to move as a tribe. But as I say, of course, you're going to face the challenge for any change. And really it becomes, when you get to that tricky end bit, it becomes a one by one. And sometimes people will choose not to be on that particular journey, and that's okay. I don't think there's bad brands in our industry. I think there's just different cultures that attract different sorts of people, and that's okay. That was a long answer to a short question.
Building culture. It's okay, absolutely fine. Building culture. So how do you build culture? How do you build the team?
Well, you've got some tricky questions. You know, it's late in the day here, right? How do you build culture? Well, first of all, you have a no dickhead policy, and that starts with yourself. So don't be a dickhead. You know, at the end of the day, be real, be truthful, be you know, as kind as you can. And sometimes that's difficult. Sometimes you know, as a leader, you'll make decisions that are unpopular and people will perceive you as something other than that. You have to be willing to be resilient with that as well, and continue on with the work. Continue, you know, building a values-driven organisation, not just values on the wall, but lived values. Live those values yourself, and make sure that in the playground, no one's deviating from those values. That's the role of the leader. If you get the right people on board and have the right vision, and you have exceptional specialists in your team, the rest kind of takes care of itself. And I'm excited to see that happening with my team, and now more broadly in my network as well.
Fantastic. How do you get those right people in the right seats of a bus?
Well, that's another really interesting question, because now that I'm older and have worked in this industry for so many years, I've been really blessed that a number of exceptional people have chosen to join me on the Barry Plant journey. So I guess that's the culmination of many years of living my life. Is, you know, I've built some incredible connections. And then, you know, it's about, as I say, take the time. You know, you have to hire slow and fire fast. You know, if you need to give people every opportunity to come on the journey, but if it's clear that they're on a different journey, it's kind to both parties to part ways as quickly as possible, and not to allow anything to fester in your business. As I say, you know, it seems simple to me because it's something that has always come reasonably easily. I love building teams. I have a genuine passion for building teams and high performing teams. I think there's enormous satisfaction in achieving great outcomes. And now, I guess, having done it for so many years, you can tell pretty quickly how it's going to come together. I also do rely on psychometric profiling to some degree. I really enjoy putting people through those routines In this role, I chose not to do it at the hiring point. I chose to do it a little later on when the team had evolved a little further. But I find psychometric profiling a great way for team members to understand each other and therefore to work better together.
And which profiling do you use? DISC?
I have used DISC. There are a few products that I like to use. Depends on what the challenge is in the team at any particular time. I like using global benchmarking team outcome testing tools as well, just because I like to understand. I think another important thing for leaders is to understand the social landscape continues to change. I was reading something before about Gen Z and how older leaders make Gen Z people cry quite a lot. You know, the older generations are used to a much more brutal style of leadership, and you know, I've lived that in my earlier journey as well. It was quite acceptable back in the day, but the world changes, and you know, you need to be flexible and move with that change instead of, oh, they should have what I had back in the day. You know, you won't have good people if you take that attitude.
Okay, so you talked about a high performing team.
Yes.
What does that look like in Lisa's book?
Oh, if you ask my team, it's probably better. I have famously 52 tracks going in my brain at any time. My team are incredible at sort of anticipating where that can be good and where that can trip them up. We have a very robust team that's more and more, you know, debating and challenging each other. It's quite a flat structure, and yeah, really high performing for us is all judged on output. You know, how do we get to where we need to go in the most sensible and swiftest way possible? But I think anyone looking in from the outside would say that with a team of, you know, a relatively small team for the size business and the amount of work that we've gotten through, the output's been, you know, tremendous in the last 18 months.
So you mentioned about being resilient. You mentioned about being kind. How do you deal with stress, people not being so kind to you, and being that resilient person? Any tips on that?
Yeah, it's hard. I meditate every day. So that's how I deal with my stress. I exercise, I eat well, I do all the things that you need to do, you know, in order to be able to function with high stress. I definitely think it's difficult for leaders because there is always going to be misperception about the reasons why you did thing, or if you did the right thing, or who you upset or whatever. I guess for me over the last 18 months, because CEO is a very different role, real CEO role, and we don't have a lot of real CEO roles in Australia. I say that because there's a lot of kind of tokenism with titles in our industry, probably connecting back to the ego element of the industry. But in a real CEO role, or in a role with real responsibility, of which there are plenty in our industry, you kind of do have to develop a little bit of depersonalization, I guess, and accept there's always going to be a certain level of chaos around you. It's sort of like, oh, well, what am I going to be dealing with today? What unexpected bomb? And you have to be willing to have a laugh about it as well. And that, again, is why team is so important, because there's no greater stress relief than, you know, knowing that if you fall backwards, that there's a whole team there to support you. And we all make mistakes. I make mistakes regularly. So does my team, but I actually encourage them, because I think if you're not making mistakes, you're not trying hard enough.
100%. So you just got me thinking, because I was just come back from ARIC. There was Ryan Serhant there. He put up his ideal day, which was on TikTok, which started at 4:30 in the morning and finished at 11 o'clock at night. And it was my...
Who was that? Sorry?
Ryan Serhant, $1 million listing agent.
Right.
He was one of the speakers there, or I suppose he was the main speaker. And I think I posted it on my Facebook page, and I've never had so many comments about this is unreal. Can't believe anybody can live their life like that. Whereas others would argue, well, hold on, this is what it takes to be highly successful, and got him to where he was. And it was really interesting. What's your ideal day then?
I don't subscribe to the 5-hour sleep theory. I just don't think it's sustainable. I do believe that quality is more important than quantity, and not to take away from how anyone else designs their life, because, you know, everyone's unique and beautifully different. Personally, if I don't get 7 or 8 hours sleep, I'm not much fun. So my ideal hour definitely involves a good night's sleep. As I say, meditation is my non-negotiable every morning. That's the first thing that I do. I think the days of, I think we put ourselves under enormous pressure to work ridiculous hours, and I honestly don't think that's healthy. You know, we talk about work-life balance. No one's got it. No one's got peace. You know, this expectation that people should be always on, it's not, again, it's not sustainable. So my ideal day involves meditation, you know, enough capacity to get to the bottom of my inbox, ideally, not often, but that would be nice. And just, yeah, I don't know. There's no ideal day in my world at the moment, Stephen. I get to see my family at the end of it.
Yeah. And that's the most important thing.
You know, it is actually. You know, the more I'm exposed to, the more I realise that, look, money's lovely. I love my Mercedes. I'm not saying money's not good. It is. But if it comes at the cost of happiness, then it's pointless, and it won't bring you happiness. It's, you know, how many people become famous and rich and are still miserable or depressed, or, you know, end up taking their own lives. You know, be happy first, act with purpose, and you'll make money.
Okay, that's a nice summary. Thank you. So a couple of final questions then. You talked about non-negotiables. You talked about meditation being one of them. What are your other, say, 2 other non-negotiables that you would have?
I won't allow people to treat me with disrespect. And what I mean by that is that I think that it's important to treat people respectfully and to also set boundaries about the way that people treat you. So I won't, you know, I have accepted a lot of poor treatment in previous roles, and I will never accept that again. So that's my one of my non-negotiables. 2, you know, I guess what pops into my mind is family first. It's one of the values of my team that, you know, if someone needs to rush off for one of their children or whatever, it's just a no questions asked policy. You know, we have to be there to support each other when real life things blow up. You know, it doesn't matter what else is on the table. If someone's been in a car accident, go. See, kid's sick, go. You know, if your headspace is not right emotionally, you're not going to make good decisions or be any use to anyone at work anyway. So, you know, on every level, family first. I don't want this to sound like it's you know, I want to balance all of my comments by saying success is equally important to me. I'm not running a charity club. You know, we do want outcomes. That's where all the satisfaction comes into the place. You know, the discipline, the high performing team, you know, there's an enormous amount of pleasure and joy in being productive and doing things that actually have meaning and doing it nicely. I don't believe that you have to choose between the 2.
100%. Couldn't agree more. Well said. What about you? What do you do to self-improve and self-develop? Any books that you listen to that you can recommend? Podcasts? Yep.
I have a business coach who is not in our industry. I think that's really important to have outside, you know, to connect with people outside the industry and to be challenging your thinking all the time. Obviously, with a coach, it's easy. It's very curated and targeted. I've had the same coach for a number of years. She's awesome. And I do absolutely listen to podcasts. I listen to a lot of Eckhart Tolle, actually. I think being present is one of the true important skills that we have to continually practice. And again, helps with stress, helps with connectivity, helps with, you know, those aha moments that you just can't possibly have if you're stressed. You know, your synapses won't connect, and then you can grind out an 18-hour day and you still won't get there. You know, if you're in a place of peace, you can find answers very quickly.
Okay, lovely. Thank you. So final question. If I could tell you just one thing, what would it be?
If I could tell you one thing?
Yeah.
Oh, whatever you're worrying about, fast forward into 100 years in the future, and is anyone really going to give a shit? Excuse the language. again, if I come back to how do we make good decisions, how do we get the best outcomes, it's when we're not stressed. We wind us as human beings, we make all these stories. Actually, an even better thing to tell you, Stephen, was just look at the facts. Human beings make enormous stories between the fact they see and in between that, the feeling that they have about what they saw. So, for example, I was 1 minute late jumping on. If you're a person who's really adamant about time, you might go, oh, Lisa's late. She's completely disrespecting me. She doesn't care about this podcast and she's not prioritizing it. And before I get on, you're already annoyed and irritated. When in actual fact, I might have tripped and broken my toe and I've been desperately trying to get here on time and I'm still going to make it because I know it's important, but, really sorry. But you had this whole negative emotion because you made up a story. And I think human beings, we do that all the time. I have to chip myself off. And, again, I'm not preaching here. These are human things that everybody does and we all do them. But yeah, it's the stories where the trouble starts, because the facts of the matter are generally pretty straightforward.
Brilliant. Well, look, thank you for your time. Thank you for being a wonderful guest. If people want to get hold of you, how do they do that, please, Lisa?
You'll find us barryplant.com.au. You'll find me on there, LinkedIn. Love to connect with anyone who's on the journey.
Brilliant. Well, look, thanks very much. Thank you, everybody, for watching and listening today. Please like it, share it, tag people in. And I look forward to seeing you on the next one. Thanks very much. Thank you, Lisa.
Thanks, Stephen. Good night, all.